Apple's new 14-inch M2 Pro MacBook Pro is finally here at the same $2,000 price, which is great, but the problem is that the M2 MacBook Air is on sale right now for only $1,100 on Amazon, about half the price with taxes included. So is it really worth spending the extra cash? Well, in this video, I'm gonna compare everything from an honest, real-world perspective and keep it short and sweet. But before I do that, I do want to mention that we're doing a giveaway of a new M2 Pro MacBook Pro and new Mac Mini, and all you have to do to enter is subscribe below, enable notifications, and comment down below to enter, and you can actually get more entries by commenting on all of our Mac videos this month, and we're gonna announce the winner on February 1st, so don't miss out on that video. In terms of design, they look extremely similar, with the 14-inch Pro just looking like a chunkier version of the Air, but the difference can really be felt when holding them in your hands. The Air just feels so thin and light that it's almost unreal. Now, because of the 14-inch Pro's thicker design, the edge can dig into your wrist a bit when typing, and even though they have the same Magic Keyboard, the Air does seem to have a bit more feedback when typing, and the trackpad actually feels a bit more clicky. The nice thing about the new M2 Pro MacBook Pro is that you do get the updated Bluetooth 5.3 and Wi-Fi 6E specs, while you're limited to Bluetooth 5.0 and Wi-Fi 6, so it doesn't take advantage of the new 6 GHz band. Now, as far as the speakers, the ones on the 14-inch Pro have actually changed compared to the previous model, being a bit less sharp in terms of the highs with lower volume, but they're still much better than the ones in the MacBook Air. Just hear it for yourself. The difference is shocking, especially in terms of the volume and bass, so if you really care about speakers, the 14-inch Pro is a lot better. Now, in terms of the actual ports, the 14-inch comes with an extra Thunderbolt port, an SD card slot, which is extremely useful in my opinion, and of course an HDMI port, which has now been upgraded to the 2.1 spec, so it supports 8K displays at 60 Hz and 4K displays at 240 Hz, which is insane. Now, on the Air, you simply just get the two Thunderbolt ports on top of the MagSafe, which both of them share, and that is it, which is a bummer, but you can also get a cheap adapter if you want, like this one on Amazon. Now, a big deal to me is the ProMotion display on the 14-inch model, which goes up to 120 Hz compared to standard 60, so it is super smooth, and it's also mini LED, going up to 1600 nits of brightness, much brighter than the M2. Now, as for the webcams, the new M2 Pro model now comes with an ISP upgrade, or image signal processor, matching the M2 chip, so they look a lot more similar than before. This is the M2 MacBook Air's webcam. As you can see, it's pretty good. It does have the new ISP from the A15 chip, just like on the M2 Pro, so let's go ahead and switch over. And now here we have the M2 Pro MacBook Pro, and here it actually looks like the white balance is a little bit more warm on this one compared to the other one, and let me know how the actual microphones sound on this guy compared to the MacBook Air down in the comment section below. Now is a really good time to talk about fan noise or lack thereof. If you're someone who constantly does Zoom meetings, your current laptop might get annoying because after a while, the fan will spin up to keep it cool as it's processing the video feed, which was a huge issue with the Intel MacBook Air, and it also impacted audio quality. The M2 MacBook Air is completely fanless, so it's always silent, but you might be worried about the 14-inch Pro as it does have dual fans, but thankfully for most tasks, the fans are literally shut off thanks to Apple Silicon being very efficient, and since the heat pipes now pull a lot of heat away from the processor. Now, if you are doing very tough tasks, then they will spin up, but they still stay pretty quiet. Now, some people have mentioned that the M2 Air bottom case can get really hot with extended loads, and that is true. The 14-inch exhausts the heat upwards through the hinge away from you, but the fanless M2 Air's bottom case can reach 47 degrees Celsius since the heat is trapped there, and up to 108 degrees Celsius internally, which is much hotter than the 14-inch. And if you're wondering how this impacts performance without a fan, well, in our detailed testing, we found it can lose 17% of its performance after about 10 minutes, and that's just the CPU alone. With graphics, the performance loss can be over 26%, and if you're loading up both of them, it can be even worse. So if you're pushing your Mac hard, the Pro is the way to go, but if you need to save cash or want the thin and light design, a thin laptop cooler can make a surprising difference by itself, and if you pair it with a $15 thermal pad, it can even outperform an M2 13-inch MacBook Pro that has more powerful graphics. I'm gonna link the cooler and the full video down in the description. So what about performance? This is the real reason why most people would buy the 14-inch Pro instead of the Air, right? And it might be the biggest reason why you're considering it. Well, I want to challenge you a little bit and have you take a second and ask yourselves, how much performance do you really need? First off, the $2,000 14-inch MacBook Pro is the double binned version, meaning that to get the full M2 Pro chip, it costs at least $2,300. And second, even the base M2 Air already beats out even the previous best 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro in many tasks, and absolutely wiped the floor with the Intel MacBook Airs. In the real world, the Air has more than enough performance for most people, but I do have to add that we are using a 512 gig SSD model of the Air because the base 256 gig model has a slow SSD that will not only slow down transfers, but your whole machine if you're multitasking and doing productivity work. And unfortunately, the new M2 Pro base 14-inch also has the same SSD issue with half the amount of chips than before, but it won't be as big of a deal because the SSD speed is still quite a bit faster than on the M2 Air. Now, as far as performance, the M2 Pro is slightly faster in terms of Geekbench 5's single core test, which will lead to a very slight improvement in terms of web-based app performance, and it's a lot faster for the multi-core test, which is why most people doing a lot of productivity work should choose that instead, especially if you're willing to pay $300 extra for the chip upgrade. Now, for battery life, they're rated at the same 18 hours, and that's because the M2 Pro chip now has 4 efficiency cores, just like the M2 in the MacBook Air, so battery life overall should be very similar. However, if you push the machines like crazy with a bunch of performance tasks, the 14-inch M2 Pro will end up using more because the chip can use quite a lot more power. Now, when you do need full performance for more than 10 minutes, that's where the M2 Pro really gets ahead, being 60% faster than the M2 Air and almost 2.5 times faster in terms of graphics because the Air ends up throttling down after just 4 to 5 minutes. So if you're doing graphics heavy tasks like gaming or productivity tasks that rely on graphics, this is where the 14-inch Pro really starts to stand out. But let's be real, most of you wanting the Air probably won't be working with heavy workloads, but using it for web browsing, some light productivity, and some normal creative work. Here, the differences aren't as big, but they're still there, like for exporting raw photos, so anyone who cares about performance would benefit from the 14-inch M2 Pro, especially for those who are used to doing extended 100% workloads, especially for graphics. And of course, you can't forget that the 14-inch comes with a mini LED XDR display that is capable of hitting 1600 nits instead of 500 on the M2 MacBook Air. And for normal use, you won't notice a difference when you're just doing regular stuff, but when it comes time for HDR, editing, or viewing, the 14-inch gives you a much better experience with really great contrast and brightness that the M2 Air simply can't achieve, as well as, of course, the 120Hz ProMotion for super smooth scrolling, which I don't notice as much as I do on my phone, and being able to play games at above 60 FPS is also great. Personally, unless you know that you want or need many of the benefits the 14-inch provides, I think the Air is a great machine and is much more pleasant for taking on the go. But if you don't mind the size and you can afford it, you do get better bang for the buck with the M2 Pro machine. So hopefully you enjoy this comparison, and if you'd rather just get a better deal on a MacBook rather than the new ones, use the YouTube tagging feature below to check out some great deals, and click that circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one. Definitely check out some of our other video comparisons that we've been doing recently, and we have a lot more testing to do with these new 14-inch MacBook Pros, as well as the 16-inch and the M2 Max chips, so stay tuned for that.